The EV market in Malaysia has come a long way in the past year or two. More and more brands, including brand new ones that were previously unknown to the market, are offering plenty of full electric options in Malaysia right now. So that has a lot of people asking, Toyota, as one of the most established car brands in Malaysia, traditionally the #1 non-national car brand in the market, where is their EV? Well, this is it, the Toyota bZ4X. It looks cool, kind of weird in certain ways, and you know what? It's actually very, very good. Let's take a closer look at the Toyota bZ4X. First things first, this car isn't actually on sale in Malaysia just yet, but it will be available very soon. Right now, UMW Toyota Motor is completely focused on its multi-pathway strategy to achieving carbon neutrality. It believes that full battery electric vehicles like this isn't the only way for Malaysians to reduce its carbon emissions. The best way to do it is to approach it through multiple angles. On the ICE level, Toyota offers plenty of very fuel-efficient models, most of them achieving between 15 up to 20 kilometers per litre. And then you've got the hybrids, or HEV, hybrid electric vehicles. Again, Toyota was the pioneer in this technology way back in 2009. That was with the Toyota Prius and then later on the Prius C. But while those two are specialized hybrid vehicles, the same technology can now be found in more mainstream cars, like the Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid, which is now locally assembled here in Malaysia. And more recently, they've also launched the Innova Zenix Hybrid for our market. Through the years, UMW Toyota have sold over 35,000 units of hybrid vehicles here in Malaysia. And combined, they reduce up to 500,000 tons of CO2 production every single year. Over everything else, the company believes that hybrid technology is still the best way forward for most Malaysian drivers. You get excellent fuel economy, and you never have to worry about having to charge it at home or, more crucially, for long distance travels. For the most part, for the most common use cases here in Malaysia, I would have to agree as well. But at the same time, Toyota is also working on all other technologies as well. Toyota was one of the first pioneers of hydrogen FCEV, or fuel cell electric vehicle technology, and they've already delivered a few Mirai FCEVs to top officials in Sarawak. That is to spur on the hydrogen production economy over in that state. And then for battery electric vehicles, you've got this, the bZ4X to look forward to. Those of you who can have access to home charging and are completely ready to jump into the EV bandwagon, this is worth waiting for. Now let's talk about the car itself. The BZ in the name stands for Beyond Zero. The 4 is a size classification for the car, and X signifies that this is a crossover. In a few other markets, Toyota also sells a slightly smaller sedan electric vehicle called the bZ3. Just like the GR86 sports car, the bZ4X was co-developed with Subaru. So alongside this, Subaru has its own version called the Solterra. This is built on a dedicated EV platform, and it's also Toyota's very first mass-produced electric vehicle for the global markets. Moving on to the design, this is clearly an unconventional look, but I think it looks really good, especially in person. At the front, it has a very sharp tip, and clearly there is no big radiator grille because this is an EV. You don't need a big front grille. And then you've got the multi-projector LED headlights with the top sort of covered in this body-colored fin. This gives it a very aggressive look on the outside. But the most prominent part of the design is clearly this big, massive body cladding around the car. It goes all the way up to the headlights and it wraps around the front bumper and all the wheel arches. This gives it a bit of an old school SUV vibe, but overall, I think this still looks modern and fresh. But as quirky as this car is, it is still far more traditional than most of its class rivals. Now that includes the Tesla Model Y, the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and the Kia EV6. But the bZ4X over here is far higher, it's much more of an SUV compared to all of them. You can see that the gap between the wheel well and the tyre is still very large, and despite this car running on massive 20-inch wheels, the tyres are still very thick. And then instead of flashy flush door handles, you've got traditional grab handles over here. At the back, it takes on more of an SUV coupe shape with the steeply sloping rear deck. At the top, you'll also see a double-layer spoiler setup. The taillights also have a very unique, full-width, sort of X-shaped design, and overall, it does give it a very distinctive look. You can call it whatever you want, but there's no way you can call this car boring. Now let's talk about all the EV bits. The front-wheel drive bZ4X that we have here has a 71.6 kilowatt-hour battery pack. And that gives a claim range of 500 kilometers on the WLTP test cycle. I've actually driven this car in Kuala Lumpur on local Malaysian roads for over 100 kilometers, and I've averaged just under 15 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. That works out to a total range of about 480 kilometers. That's close enough to the claim range. That is certainly impressive. So in terms of total range, this car is a step above most of its competition. But when it comes to charging, this car is less than impressive. Most EVs in the same class has an 11 kilowatt onboard AC charger, while here it's rated at just 6.6 kilowatts. So getting a full charge from your home wall box may take more than 10 hours. Thankfully for DC fast charging, it is more competitive. This has a maximum rate of 150 kilowatts, so we can get from 10 to 80% SOC in just about 30 minutes. So you may be wondering why the bZ4X is more efficient than most of its rivals. Smaller battery, but even longer range. The simple answer is, this is just far less powerful than its rivals. The single electric motor here is rated at just 204 PS and 266 Newton meters of torque. It can get from 0 to 100 in 7.5 seconds. So easily, this is the slowest car in its class. But having said that, 7.5 seconds with the immediate torque of an EV is still significantly quicker than most traditional ICE cars out there. Driving this car, plant your foot down, and I think it feels just as fast as a Volkswagen Golf GTI. That's a pretty fast car. But while most other EVs in the same class with a dedicated EV platform are either all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive, the Toyota bZ4X is actually front-wheel drive here. But don't let that fool you, because to drive the bZ4X is surprisingly good. The steering is abnormally heavier than most other EVs out there, so it gives some semblance of feel as you fling it through corners. To drive, this is even more dynamic, I think, compared to a Kia EV6. It's the same with the ride as well. While it's not quite as supple or as overly soft as the Hyundai Ioniq 5, it is overall supremely comfortable. And at lower speeds, is nowhere near as busy as, say, a BMW iX. So overall, the ride and handling package of the bZ4X is surprisingly good. I think the Subaru connections really shine through here. If you thought the outside of this car was unique, the interior is on a whole different level again. Toyota has completely rethought the relationship between the steering wheel and the instrument cluster. Instead of looking at the meters through the wheel like so, you now have the wheel placed lower with the instrument cluster placed further up. This, I think, works really well because it places the meters further up, closer to your natural field of view as you drive. So you also won't have any need of, say, a HUD on the glass. This to me is a far better solution than, say, Tesla's decision to place the speedometer on the center screen like so. But having said that, if you normally like to have your steering wheel really high up, the top of the wheel will actually block some parts of the meter, so you'll have to end up driving with the wheel slightly further down than what you're used to. This may feel awkward at first. This setup was actually intended to be used with a yoke steering wheel, but before you say that Toyota is just copying Tesla over here, remember, Tesla merely changed a round steering wheel with a yoke without adjusting anything else. So if you're driving the car, say you want to park it more than half a lock in, there's nothing to grab up here. That is a really weird situation, far from ideal. Toyota, on the other hand, for versions of the bZ4X with a yoke steering wheel, they've actually made it steer by wire. There is no physical connection between the steering wheel and the steering rack. Everything is controlled electronically. So at low speeds, as you drive, all you need is about half a lock, like so. So like this, a steering yoke would actually make perfect sense. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, because we are still getting the steering wheel over here, not the yoke, and in fact that is only available in a few select markets where it's actually legal. Onto the rest of the cabin, the top half of the dashboard is actually wrapped in this nice fabric finish. I think this looks good and it feels high quality as well. It certainly looks more unique than most traditional dashboards out there. One design quirk is the lack of any form of a glove box on the left side over here. Instead, you have to use this open cargo bin down there. Onto the center screen, you get this really nice widescreen display over here with support for full wireless Apple CarPlay, and it's a full screen setup as well, which looks great. Even better still, they've managed to keep a lot of physical buttons over here, including for volume and all your aircon controls. This to me is far better ergonomics than having everything placed on the center touchscreen. Other things I like include this gear selector where you have to press the outer ring down and then twist right or left to engage drive or reverse. This looks cool and it works well too. And then you've also got this flap over here that reveals the Qi wireless charger for your smartphones, which you can always close so it doesn't distract you as you drive along. To charge your devices, there is a pair of USB-C chargers down there, so they've got everything well thought out in this car. Another highlight are the driver monitoring cameras placed right behind the steering wheel over here. This monitors your eyes whether you're looking forward, paying attention to the road, or perhaps looking down at your phone, at a video or whatever, or perhaps looking away with your mind wandering elsewhere. If it ever detects that you're not paying attention, it will give you a warning at the top screen. I think that's a nice safety feature to have. Moving on to the back, it goes without saying it is absolutely humongous back here. Look at the amount of leg room that I have. That is set to my own driving position and I can barely reach it. For your reference, I am 167 centimeters tall, but I think even if you are north of 180, you should not have any issues in terms of leg room or even headroom. It is massive in here. This car is easily more spacious than either the EV6 or the Ioniq 5, but as I always say, space and comfort don't always go hand in hand. As you can clearly see by now, I've got my knees up in the air. That's because the floor is placed rather high relative to the base of the seat. So sitting like this, it's not very comfortable. Having said that, there's plenty of foot space to just slide forward, and yeah, I think this is pretty fine. The seat itself is also fairly supportive and quite comfortable. The backrest is at a very nice angle. I think I can sit in the back here for quite a few hours with no complaints, and the base of the seat is sufficiently long. Plus, it also feels wide enough back here to fit 3 adults. And then you've also got your regular rear aircon vents placed down here instead of the B-pillar mounted vents like in most of its rivals, plus a pair of USB-C chargers for rear passengers, although the design looks somehow a little bit too empty. What do you think of this? The boot is 450 litres, which is decent enough. It feels quite large, but it's actually the smallest in the class. Plus, you don't get any frunk in the Toyota. But that's it for now for this early preview video. I'll give this car a much more thorough, longer, in-depth review once it's launched, because I'll still need to know how much it's going to be priced at. Where it stands in the market will of course depend on how competitively it is priced after all. So for now, what do you think of this car's looks both on the outside and the inside? What do you think of this car's range and performance? And what are your thoughts on UMW Toyota's multi-pathway strategy towards carbon neutrality? Let me know in the comments section below. For now, thank you for watching and stay safe everyone.